Hard-fought game. I think we played an attrition game today. We wanted to win the line of scrimmage on both sides. I thought we were effective in doing so. I thought we ran it on offense and played behind our running game. I thought we did a good job of minimizing their run on defense, and obviously that was big because, we've been leaking here the last 6 quarters or so.
24-16 was the final in Charlotte. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I'm Missi Matthews. We are here to talk about the Steelers' win over the Panthers to move them to 6-8. So let's welcome in our panelists to do so. We have Craig Wolfley of the Steelers Radio Network and SNR, Matt Williamson from Steelers.com and SNR, and we have Dave Dameshek joining us from the Extra Points Network. All things Steelers here, guys, and happy Victory Monday, by the way. Feels good to be able to say that once again. So we're going to start with game balls. A lot of people contributed to the win yesterday. Wolf, you get to go first. Who's getting your game ball?
I'll give it to the fat guys up front. I mean, those
Shocker.
guys, real shocker here, but they did such a great job of coming off the ball. They were putting their forehead right in another man's chin and taking them backwards. That's what you want to see. A little backward momentum, being able to have some of that momentum falling forward all the time instead of backwards. And it was backed up with some serious ball carrying by Najee Harris and, of course, by Jaylen Warren, too. But I just loved what they did. They, on the double teams, on the single blocks, everything, the zone blocking scheme, they stayed after it and they moved people. So kudos to the guys up front.
Matt, who gets your game ball?
I'm going with Deontay Johnson. I mean, he's been a little snake bitten, all these targets, can't get in the end zone. People are giving him a hard time for running backwards or a drop here and there. But he showed me yesterday, which he often does, he gets open at a very high percentage of the time and was exceptional in this game, often against J.C. Horn, who's a really good, young, talented corner. Did his best work on third downs, slant routes, out routes. Him and Trubisky have a good thing going.
Dave, who gets your game ball?
I'm going to go with Marcus Allen. No. I'm going to go with Pat Meyer only because Williamson stole my answer of Deontay, who's, what an absolute weapon Deontay is. Underappreciated. I get the cynicism that goes on banks of the Three Rivers in what's tracking to not be a playoff season. But, man, things stopped really nicely in 2023 with Pickens and Deontay. That is one position that does not need upgraded in this offseason. But Pat Meyer, think of how far that offensive line for the last year, if not 2 years, the complaint has been a need to upgrade on the offensive line. I suspect Andy Weidel will address that offseason to some degree. But as it is, Pat Meyer and those 5 guys, as Wolfley touches on, really have come a long way from September to now.
All right, since you guys all went offense, I'm going to give the defensive line some love. The job they were able to do, especially coming out of the Ravens game. Demoralizing is, I think, some of the words we heard from the guys that weren't able to stop the run when you knew it was coming. And just the fact they made Sam Darnold uncomfortable, 4 sacks, but 21 yards on 16 carries. They just did a tremendous job. And yes, the Steelers offense put together some very, very long drives, which helped them. But I think they rebounded nicely from that Ravens game and proved that, yes, they can stop the run. And I thought it was great to see, especially Alex Highsmith, a homecoming for him, get a sack as well. All right, so let's talk about third downs, because third and manageable, sure, it helps out. But, Wolf, when you look at what the Steelers offense was able to do, that is why they started to have success.
All they had to do was keep dialing up Deontay Johnson, for crying out loud. That man was just magic on third down. You take a look at what he and Mitch and him were able to, they got on that ESPN, sort of mental thing going on, and they were able to locate each other. And it's like Matt was saying, this guy almost gets, when Deontay's on, he almost gets free whenever he wants to. I mean, he's just really slick. And he has some great moves to get out there. And the fact was that one time he caught the ball and he ghosted three guys in like 3 steps. It was unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like that. It was just amazing to watch him. So you take a look at the fact that he had 5 third down receptions that resulted, in first downs. It was just tremendous. And it was Mitch and it was Deontay finding each other on this day. That's for sure.
It's really become a theme. I mean, going into this game, over their last 5 games, the Steelers were converting 50% of their third downs. I mean, that's a very high percentage. That's like lead the league type percentage if you're hitting 500. And then they go 12 for 16 in this one. So they got a good 6-game stretch here of really being effective on third down.
I think a lot of it does have to do with number 18. I'm curious what the three of you think, though, about Mitchell Trubisky, because the conversation has now emerged. Do you definitely bring him back? To me, I get that the backup QB hit is a little bit too significant than you'd want. What, $8 million, $10 million for next year? But I feel like you do want Mitch back in 2023. How say you?
No, I think so. Especially when you don't have a Ben contract as your number 1 guy either. I mean, you still have a pretty cheap quarterback room, and Trubisky belongs. I absolutely think you bring him back.
Oh, I think it all depends. Does Mitch want to come back? You know, because what's he want to do? Does he want to go out there and maybe try to pick up somewhere else and pick up his career in another place? Or I don't know. So it's kind of one of those things that right now it really doesn't matter because you're under contract for the rest of this year, and then you'll deal with next year.
The 21-play drive, I had a chance to catch up with Mitch right after the game on the field, and he said, man, that was tiring. Imagine what the offensive line was going through. So, Wolf, as you were watching that take place, what was going through your mind?
Flashbacks to Houston in the latter part of the 80s when we had a 23-play, 13-minute drive in the Astrodome where all the rednecks were smoking in their filterless cigarettes and there was a cloud of smoke hanging over the field. That was agonizing. It was so bad that on the 22nd play, as me and the guy I was playing against staggered to our feet on the 1-yard line, he turned to me, I forgot who it was, and he said, well, you either got to score or you got to fumble, but we got to get off the field because I can't breathe. It was that bad. But yeah, this was a gut check, and this absolutely, in my mind, it just tore the heart out of the Carolina Panthers. That is a tough thing to come back from, that big a drive. And out of those 21 plays, 15 of them were body blows. They were running plays. They just boom. And then they finally got to the head with the touchdown.
Matt, do you feel like we feel that way about this drive because it ended with 7 points?
Probably, but I mean, anytime that you hold the ball for that long, I mean, I'm curious in real time how long it went between possessions for the Panthers, because you go into halftime and then the Steelers hold the ball for 11:43. That's a long time to sit around and not come out there. And I thought it was super impressive. I mean, they overcame, I think Deontay's taunting call was during that drive as well, because they could have gone backwards. Wolf mentioned, all the runs, but Trubisky was, 6 out of 7 on that drive, 5 for 5 on third down. I mean, just clutch and in control.
All right, guys, we're going to
I do think Missi, by the way.
No, go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, to your point, I think the opposite is what happened to get semi-obscure. The 97 was it AFC title game against Denver. Cordell and company drove all the way down the field, and that drive took 9 or 10 minutes in the third quarter. They're trying to rally there, and it ends on a pick in the end zone by Cordell. That's when Romanowski comes up, if you recall, and hits his forehead to taunt Cordell. And I think you're right, and that is what we've seen the Steelers offense not do some percentage of this season is finish off the drive and get it into the end zone. Obviously, we can look back at Baltimore, but a number of times over the course of the season, I think you do have to put that in the end zone, or else it becomes detrimental to your own efforts, like you say.
Well, and I mentioned this on the radio yesterday, so Wolf, I know you know this, but they have not scored in the third quarter except for in the Jets game. Minkah Fitzpatrick had an interception, basically handed them the ball in a platter right by the goal line. So it was big for them, especially in the second half, where the third quarter has really gotten wonky for the entire team, specifically the offense. But we do have to give props to the defense as well. So we're going to take a short break here on the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. We'll discuss that. But first, here is the Steelers Spanish radio call on a great catch by George Pickens. Regresamos pronto.
Warren a la derecha de Trubisky, formación pistola. 3rd y 4 desde la 44. A ver si alguien se mueve prematuramente. No. Saque limpio. Buen bloqueo de Warren. El pase es largo a la izquierda. Largo. Atrapado por ¿quién más? Jorgito Pickens. Dentro de la yarda 20.
knew the type of running game that they had. They have a really good couple backs, and so we knew to win the game we had to do that. In the past couple weeks, that wasn't ourselves, but I think it started. We had a great week of practice. Honestly, one of our best week of practices, in a while, and so I think that's where it started, and we really set the game, from the first drive, stopping the run, and so that's why we were successful because we were able to stop the run.
Welcome back to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. There you heard from Alex Highsmith, a special homecoming for him, contributing to helping stop the Panthers' run game. And guys, we talked a lot about their success heading into this matchup, but 16 carries, 21 yards. Their longest was 5 yards, and Wolf, some of them were 0 yards or even negative.
They actually, out of those 16 carries, 7 of them were negative or 0 yards, just as you point out. I'm just pointing out my math skills, just
you got it, check.
But yes, they attacked the line of scrimmage. The linebackers did a great job. You had the big guys up front. Larry Ogunjobi was a monster. Okay, just put it out there. Brady Christensen does not want to see Ogunjobi or Cam Hayward again. I can guarantee you. That was a nightmare for those two. And I really was impressed with them. And then you've got Highsmith and Watt, who did a great job coming off the end. But again, inside, you got to give a lot of love to Spillane. You got to give a lot of love to Devin Bush. Even Mark Robinson showed some flash and coming downhill. But you know what? You want some run-stopping power, you can spell it Terrell Edmonds, however you want to spell it, because that guy did some serious work in the box.
Matt, it felt like, as Coach said, they put bigs on bigs. The Arby's package, we saw some of that. One of the things that they had been working with. What did change, and did we see a little bit more of DeMarvin Leal and what he can bring to this line?
Yeah, Leal and Loudermilk, unfortunately, it's at Chris Wormley's expense, are going to have to step up now. But I think they would have been a part of this anyway, as kind of a four-man front with those guys sort of as the ends with some bigger guys on the inside. They would put 4 true D linemen on the field, more than they have in the past. And you even saw Watt, who did a really good job, as Wolf said, securing the edge. I want to call out Highsmith too. I thought he played a phenomenal game. Yeah. But once in a while, you'd see Watt on the second level as well, with 4 big guys up front, or Highsmith is the 5th. And I'm a big DeMonte KZ fan, but we didn't see nearly as much of the big nickel. We saw a lot of the heavier 300-pounders out there, and it worked great. Like you said, they want to put an extra offensive lineman on the field. There's no secret to what Carolina's doing.
Dave, how big was this for the Steelers defense, as I had said earlier, that just got gashed by the Ravens the prior week?
Can I be honest with you? I don't know. It's a week-to-week league, and, you could say, the cynic would say Sam Darnold maybe didn't present as that big a threat in the passing game, so they had to load up and stop the run. That was what Tomlin wanted to do going into this one, especially coming off the rate. But Anthony Brown was not a threat to throw the ball either. So I don't know which is the defense going forward, and I defer to you guys on that. I'm curious what you think. Which is the real Steelers defense over these next 3 weeks? And obviously, as we go into the offseason, Weidl, obviously, I feel like you look at the Eagles for a decade now, they've really loaded up on both sides of the line of scrimmage. It is not a mystery why they are consistently pretty good. It's because they do that. Is that what the Steelers are going to look to do? Or does this game that we just saw mean that they address corner or otherwise with the first-round pick? I threw that one out to the gang. I threw that one out to everybody.
I have no idea about the first round pick. All I know is I watched guys that were buttoned down on their details. What we saw from the linebackers, and this I especially liked. Did you notice how many times the linebackers attacked the line of scrimmage, and one of the Carolina offensive guards would move backwards at the impact? When you have penetration like that, you are making it difficult as all get out for any back to be able to do anything. When you can get penetration and make those backs start to have to go lateral after just taking the ball, what have you, it's really something, because when those linebackers attack like that, they do a great job. And I just thought between Cam Hayward and whoever was holding down the inside, Ogunjobi, I know Loudermilk was in there for a period of time, who I think Loudermilk's got some great opportunities to get stronger and bigger and really contribute more coming up for next year. But he is really a kid that I look forward to his development. He's going to be good. That's really good at some point. But Right now, I mean, just those guys attacked this line of scrimmage and just created all sorts of chaos.
And along those lines, Wolf, I really thought the front seven, along with Edmonds, I'm glad you brought him up too, were much better in this game than they were the previous 6 quarters of attacking blockers, you know, and really taking on blocks with heavy hands, inside hands, stunning that blocker and taking the fight to them. And then, of course, shedding. You know, I thought they took on and shed much better than they did, you know, leading up to this game.
Sometimes your best defense is just simply getting off blocks. You hold the point, you set the edge, you get off blocks, and, you know, all the schematics in the world, you can sit there and play with that chalk all day long, but it's the guys that, the Jimmies and Joes that get off the blocks. That's what a defense is all about.
Matt, we touched on this earlier, but in terms of the offense being able to let the defense have a little bit of a break, even Alex Highsmith was just talking about how crazy it was, the longest drive he had ever seen with his 2 eyes. That does go hand in hand, though, with them being able to stop the run so well, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I very much believe this in this league as a whole, that fourth quarter defense is becoming a dying breed. You know, that these offensive coordinators get to know your checks and all these things, and less defense is better. I had read this today. I mean, both these teams really only had 8 meaningful drives. I mean, usually that number's 12, 13. That's exactly what a defense wants. Less defense is more defense.
Dave, and going back to your question and maybe to your point, what does this mean for the Steelers defense in terms of what they can do in the final 3 games? But you know the Raiders are going to want to run the ball. Baltimore's going to want to run the ball again. The Browns, what does they carry over just in terms of maybe the physicality that they were lacking last week into these final 3 games?
Well, one thing we know is, and I'm not trying to sound like you know, somebody who, well, we were talking before we got going here, hearing some great Wolf stories from way back when. But, you know, that Steelers identity thing is a real thing, certainly to Coach Tomlin on down, and the physical nature of the AFC North and all of those platitudes, which also happen to be the truth, especially in a conference that includes Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. I do think that as much as I like Kenny Pickett, he isn't a superhero level talent. They're going to have to get physical and win those battles against the superhero guys in order to be successful in January's going forward over the next half decade, at least, you would think. So, yeah, I think that this is something to build off of in terms of how the Steelers are going to have to win games in the mighty AFC.
All right, guys. Well, it's a little bit of a short week. The Steelers getting ready to play on Saturday, Christmas Eve, the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception happening this week. So good to have a Victory Monday as we head into the short week. I appreciate your time as we break down Steelers and Panthers here on the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. Thanks, everybody, for watching at home as well. We'll see you next week, and happy holidays.